Presented by Hannah Murray.
Welcome to today's book show. Diana Rosie, her debut novel Alberto's Lost Birthday, is published to coincide with the 80th anniversary of the Spanish Civil War. As a child, Alberto lost his birthday in the war. Now an old man living a simple life, his grandson embarks on a quest to find his missing birthday.
This is Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain.
Joining us on the line now from the UK is Diana Rosie. She's a copywriter by trade and has created award-winning campaigns for a variety of popular brands. But she's with us on the book show to talk about her debut novel. It's called Alberto's Lost Birthday, and it's about a little boy and his grandfather embarking on a quest to find the old man's missing birthday. And it's to coincide with the 80th anniversary of the Spanish Civil War, which is this year. Welcome to the book show, Diana.
Hello, thank you.
Oh, it's lovely to have you with us. And what a beautiful idea for a story. Where did it all come from?
Well, thank you. Well, when I was little, we used to go on holiday to Spain every year. And while we were there, we met an old Spanish gardener who didn't know when his birthday was. And as I was just 6 or 7 years old, it absolutely horrified me that you didn't know when your most special day of the year was. And it's just stuck with me all through my life. This isn't his story, but it's what inspired the story. It's the sort of nugget of the idea where it all came from.
Wow, that's amazing. And do you know why this man that you met said that he didn't know when his birthday was?
No, I don't. I think my parents know the full story, but I've sort of, since the book's come out, I've not really wanted to know the real story because I've just created this around him.
Yes.
So no, I don't know what it was.
So
I'm sure it was tragic though, because there were lots of really awful stories. That came out of the Spanish Civil War.
Yeah, absolutely. So where did you decide to run with it, with Alberto?
Well, what I wanted to do was tell some of the story of the Spanish Civil War, but not go into too much depth, because really it's a story about relationships and human emotions. So I've told the story partly in the present tense. So it's a grandfather and his grandson going off looking for the birthday, and partly in the past, and the people who came across Alberto as a child, and their experiences of the war and the build-up to the war as well. It's not just about the years of the war. And so eventually the two start coming together as the search for his birthday gets closer and closer.
Oh, and presumably you had to do quite a lot of research for this, did you, into the Spanish Civil War and some of the things that happened?
I did. I sort of chose pockets rather than, the entire story, because I think it's an awful lot to take in. I was interested in the main protagonists, so, the church, the army, and also the landowners, but perhaps looking at a different character, someone who was not stereotypical of those different areas. And then I also found a really fascinating website called They Still Draw Pictures, which is based on some psychology and research that they did at the end of the Spanish Civil War, where they got children to draw their experiences of the war to help them overcome the trauma.
Wow.
And those pictures are still online, and you can look at them and see who drew them and the areas of Spain that they came from. And I just found that quite inspirational.
Oh, absolutely. And what's that website?
If you just Google They Still Draw Pictures, it will come up with it.
Okay, that's fascinating. So what kind of pictures did you see on that site then?
Well, some of them are, they're very sad. They're pictures of planes flying overhead and the destructions that the war caused, people's families, all sorts of things.
So tell me a bit more about the character of Alberto.
He is of unknown age, obviously. He's a very quietly spoken man. He doesn't talk unnecessarily. He loves the land. He loves his country. He's warm and he's loving, but he's not very demonstrative of it, if that makes sense. So he and his grandson have a close relationship, but it's based on not discussing that. It's just small gestures, a gentleness between them.
Lovely. And what's his son like? How old is he?
His grandson
yes.
is about 7 years old.
Okay.
And he's a normal kid. He's been affected by some trauma himself, which is why he looks to his grandfather for help and support while his parents aren't around. And when this story of his grandfather losing his birthday comes up, it grabs him, and it's a good distraction from what's happening in his life. And so he becomes very excited about this quest. He also finds other reasons to find his grandfather's birthday, which the book sort of explains later on. But yes, he uses it as a vehicle to help escape some horrible stuff that's going on in his life. And his grandfather helps him with that.
So his grandfather, Alberto, has never blown out candles on a cake, never received a single card or present. What's that like for him? How does he feel about that?
I think there's a generation that those things weren't as important. He, grew up in the war, and so these things just become irrelevant, don't they? But when he gets married and has children, he loves the fact that his children are able to appreciate things that he thinks they deserve, and so he gets pleasure from that, and then latterly from his grandson as well.
Oh, lovely. Was it an enjoyable book to write? It sounds it.
It was. Some of it was quite emotional. You write about what you know, and so when things happen to people, then, I found there were times when I couldn't quite see the screen through the tears, but it was rewarding as well, because there's quite a few little strands that come together at the end, and I was quite pleased when that happened.
And how was the whole process of writing it? I said in the introduction it was your first novel. How did it compare to anything else you've done before?
Well, it's very different in its length. Obviously, as a copywriter working in advertising, it's all about keeping it short. But I actually didn't plan to write a novel. I got made redundant during the recession and was looking for something to do to fill my time, and started writing it, and got a lot of enjoyment out of it. But I went back to work before it was finished, so then it was something that became, something to do in the evenings and weekends. And when people started to show an interest in it, I thought, well, I'd better finish this. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the experience. And now I'm on the second one. I'm enjoying that as well.
So is the second one completely different?
Also about identity, but different setting. Definitely a different setting. And I won't give away too much, because it's still very early stages.
Fair enough. And is there anything that you're doing differently in terms of writing for the second book that you learnt having done the first, or what to do or what not to do, maybe?
There's definitely some learnings. It's the first book. There's a little bit too much telling, not showing. I know that's something I've got to work on. But there are things that I enjoyed that I'm going to try and recapture in the second one.
What do you mean by telling and not showing?
Well, sometimes you get sort of dialogue where people say, and then this happened, and instead of letting the reader experience it.
I see.
That sort of thing.
And it must be difficult to get into these kind of things. Even it doesn't matter how many books you've read, to write one is a whole different experience.
It is, and I'm not the world's biggest reader. I like books and I like a variety of books, but I definitely wanted to write something that I would like to read. I think that's important. I think, the style of writing and the way the story went was something that I would be attracted to in a book, and I hope other people will be as well.
Lovely. Well, if people want to get a copy of the book, it's called Alberto's Lost Birthday, and it's by Diana Rosie, who we've been chatting to today. Diana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Hannah.
The Book Programme, presented by Hannah Murray.
TRE.